Brock Bowers is tight end 1, but who's the rest of this class? Ben Sinnott, Theo Johnson, who's tight end 2, 3, 4. We're going to contextualize it all next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. And guys, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know, I got to kick this intro to my guy, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Bengal Tigers, man. And the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where you get your number one source for all the best draft content. Listen, today we are talking tight ends, right? We're going to start this conversation off contextualizing the tight end class. Then we're going to go to our classic segment, stock up, stock down, and then we're going to finish it off with a perfect fit, man, where we pick the player. We pick the NFL franchise and say that this needs to happen so it can be a mutually beneficial situation. Listen, I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Remember to hit that like button. Remember to comment after each segment. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel with the best NFL draft content, remember to hit the subscribe button. But DP, before we get this conversation started, man, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Keith, we know that Brock Bowers is tight end 1, and for most people right now, if you ask them, we're 2 weeks away from the 2024 NFL Draft. Keith, most people say, man, this is a bad tight end group, or it's a lackluster tight end group, right? And it's like, who's tight end 2? And I think this is where a situation with Keith, we're going to disagree a little bit, because I know you really like Ja'Tavion Sanders, and me getting into his tape and watching him, I was like, I thought I was going to like him more than I did. And it was just like, of course, I think, I already went in knowing that he's not a great blocker. Like, he doesn't, he has size to do it. I just don't think he wants to do it. You know what I mean? I don't think blocking is a thing that he actually wants to get involved with most times. I think it's just a business decision. Like, I'll maybe wall a guy off. I'll be a power forward and set a screen and then want my running back to run behind him. But, like, he's not going to be a guy that's going to latch and kind of move guys and wash guys down a lot. But I think the athleticism is where, like, not the combine testing. The combine testing kind of definitely caught my eye. But I was just kind of watching him like, I don't see a guy that's winning on his own, right? Like, the Bama game, to me, was a lot of schemed up stuff, tight end leaks and delays across the middle of the field where the defense wasn't keyed in on him. It was Adonai Mitchell. It was Xavier Worthy. And so I looked at it and I said, man, I don't know if this is a guy that I can, at least early on, funnel my passing offense to. And Keith, when it comes to tight end 2, there's 2 names that came to mind for me. I haven't, like, solidified exactly who's tight end 2 yet. I really like Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State a lot. I like Ben a whole lot, Keith. Like, the versatility, the physical aspect of what he brings to the run game. But also, watching him, like, I don't know who Kansas State quarterback was. You know what I mean? I couldn't even tell you. But watching him as a receiver, I see the upside and the things that people really like from him. The route running is actually, there is some flashes of his route running of being able to stem guys, head fakes at the top of routes, you know what I mean? Being able to get open against man-to-man coverage. He had some drops down in Mobile, which I remember coming out of Mobile. I was like, what's this? Like, you know what I mean? He just wasn't catching the ball, but he only had 2 drops during the actual season. So, like, just watching him, like, I really like what he brings to the table. Then I like Theo Johnson from Penn State. You know what I mean? That big, like, vertical athlete. But also, there's some route running with him, too. You know what I mean? Be able to change directions, whip routes, pivots, different things of that nature, man. I think for me, Ja'Tavion Sanders is either going to be tight end 3 or tight end 4 for me, probably when this whole thing is over with.
Okay, well, here we go, Locked On family. I'll say we always agree. Here we go with the big disagreement, man. All right, so let's have this conversation. This should be a fun conversation regarding this tight end class. So it's hard to have the conversation and you poke holes and then also say that you like the player.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Because you almost have to like knock another player in order to elevate the other player, right? So I'm gonna say with Jatavian Sanders. I think I had a high second round grade on him before the athletic testing. The athletic testing was very underwhelming because of what I thought his skill set was, but I still like him. I like him in the third round. I think he's that flex tight end, big Y. I thought he was a fluid mover out there. He may just be a better football player than what he is athletic tester. I agree with you on the blocking part of it, but I think you know what you're getting. You're getting a big Y, you're getting a fluid mover. And just maybe not somebody you just have block at the point of attack. But I always go back to how many tight ends are just dominant at the line of scrimmage. And it's not very many in the NFL that you're going to put on a defensive end and say, move that guy out the way. Ben Sinnott, I liked him, and I'm gonna keep saying this. I like him as a Kyle Juszczyk guy, right? Like your H back, fullback. You can do a bunch of different things. I think he belongs in a Kyle Shanahan esque type scheme. The drops, the part that scared me, DP, with Ben Sinnott was the drops that happened at the Senior Bowl were the drops that I seen on film, and unfortunately, it almost became like a confirmation more than it was this is like a one-off type thing, right? Same thing with Jaheim Bell. Jaheim Bell, that's another tight end we could throw into this conversation. Jaheim Bell also had timely drops, and I didn't see Ben Sinnott as a sudden athlete. So when I'm watching him, I'm like, man, he's probably going to be in high traffic areas most of the time, right? And so, especially being a middle of the field player, also, so from my perspective, I was like, he has to catch. Like he has to be like 100% guy as far as when it comes to catches, because he's always going to be around people. So that was my biggest concern. And then I didn't think he was a great separator, but I did like him. I can't remember what grade I gave him, maybe a late 4, early 5. I think he's going to be for certain offenses in certain times. Like if the Miami Dolphins, right? Another team from that, Shanahan type offense, right? And they don't have that type of player yet. Like, there's only one Kyle Juszczyk out there. But if they were looking for something like that, like a tight end that could block at the line of scrimmage, block at the point of attack, and then they could put him at fullback when they're trying to get tough and gritty, right? He can do some of those things. So I liked Ben Sinnott, but I liked him in certain schemes. And then Theo Johnson, I think he's probably the wild card, right? Because he's 6'6", straight line, fast, the speed. The only thing would be the suddenness and change of direction. And it's just because that's body composition, right? Those longer limb guys, they just don't change direction the same as a 5'6" guy, right? But I did like him, and I just wonder if you put him in the right situation and you have potentially like a boom factor on you. So I would probably still go Jatavian as tight end 2. Then I would probably go Theo Johnson as tight end 3. And then I haven't watched every single tight end, but of the 4 we just named, then I would put Ben Sinnott in that situation.
I think also with contextualizing this tight end class, you're going to have a lot of guys who are going to probably, especially early on, like Brock is in the tier of his own, bar none. Like he's the one guy that you say, listen, I'm drafting the first round. I know what I'm getting out of him and what I can do with him. What a lot of the other guys, it is a lot of, he quote our guy Ray Garvin, Ray G from Twitter. Ray always talk about hopium. It's a lot of hopium. Same with Theo. You hope that he put him in a better situation because Penn State's offense was abysmal passing the ball in 2023. You hope that you could see that what we saw at the combine take form in the NFL offense if you put him in with a good quarterback, offensive play caller. Same thing with like Sanders, and even like for me, I'm gonna say this, Keith. Ben Sinnott, we always mention George Kittle when we talk about Brock Bowers, right? I actually think that Ben Sinnott has a lot of George Kittle in him in terms of
I don't know if he had the athleticism.
Form, if he hopium, get to that ceiling. I think he has that full form game where, like you said, a lot of tight ends aren't doing what George Kittle does. He's a new Gronk, a guy that can displace guys. Brock Bowers isn't displacing many. I've watched Ben Sinnott take dudes for a ride in the
But you
run
think
game.
he can run? That was the question I had with Ben. I didn't see that open field athleticism and run after the catch ability when I had watched him. And that's the part, I guess, with the George Kittle comp that I give it to Brock Bowers, is because the run after the catch ability, the ability to be tough, right? You know, people trying to ankle tackle him and things like that, and he's breaking those tackles. I didn't see that type of separation and then second, third, fourth gear from Ben when I had watched him.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the little bit of a difference, you know what I mean, in terms of Brock has a little bit more of the George Kittle movement, where I look at Ben Sinnott has more of the full complete package of a tight end, like, you know what I mean. But I'll throw out one more. You said that Theo Johnson was kind of like the X factor.
Yeah.
A guy that we haven't seen in a little bit because he got hurt. Erick All from Iowa, former Michigan tight end.
Yeah.
Right, you know, I think he's listed at like 6'5", 250. When he was at Michigan, I was extremely high on him. They didn't pass the ball then. They still didn't pass it in 2023 after he left. But the point is, this young man has all of the tools. I think he's come off back-to-back season-ending injuries. I think somebody's going to get a steal with him, Keith. Dare I say the San Francisco 49ers in round 3 or 4, where you could just kind of sit him behind, or the Kansas City Chiefs. Sit behind the established starter, but this tight end class, it's going to be more 12 personnel guys than bona fide tight end ones when you get down to the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And there's going to be a lot of situation-specific guys going to the right spot, right? This is going to be a tight end class that after they get drafted, I think we'll be able to put everything in proper perspective for you as far as who we think are the boom and bust guys as far as their situation. But let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. We are on to stock up, stock down, man. Which players are we higher on than the consensus, and which players do we have more question marks, man, than the rest of the NFL draft community? Stay tuned.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How is your social battery right now? Guys, are you drained? Are you just walking around bursting with energy? I can tell you for myself, I'm somewhere in the middle, you know what I mean? Between player interviews, talking to agents, scouting, film sessions, writing reports, and bringing all the best draft content to you guys each and every single day. Our every day is, I'm a little tired. I'm not going to lie to you, but I love what I do, guys. But at the same time, especially now that it's springtime down here in the South, right? Winter is fading out quickly now. It can be easy to ignore our social battery and spread ourselves thin, especially with social gatherings picking up after the wintertime. Guys, we got to think about ourselves, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't think about yourself, you'll never be the best version of yourself. So you know how you can do that? Therapy, right? It gives you the self-awareness to build a social life that doesn't drain your battery. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. All right, find your social sweet spot with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. The stock market is open, guys, and you already know here on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, we're going to tell you who you need to put some money into coming in 2 weeks out from the 2024 NFL Draft. Keith, a guy that I finally, was able to finish the deep dive on, and I think his stock is up. Like, still, I'm not saying he's going to be a second or first round player, but in the safety class, tweet this out. This safety class is a good group. You got kind of like going into an ice cream shop. You got your own flavors. Man, you can go into this safety class and find versatile defensive backs. It's a good couple of guys that have that corner safety background in their wheelhouse. And Keith, Marcus Banks is a guy that I, studied, over at Mississippi State, a guy that I like a lot. You know what I mean? In terms of like, especially probably late, I was not even late day 2, early day 3, 4th to 5th round. I think you're going to get a guy that you feel happy with, man. He was like a 4-star corner coming out of high school, listed, at his pro day at 6 foot, 190, short arms, 29-inch arms. His wingspan is like 7'1", or whatever, but he tests, I think, 4'4", in the 40, 36 to 37 or higher in the vert. And this is a guy that, Keith, when I watch him, you move him around a lot. Like a lot of these guys we see in the NFL, I'm not saying he's Brian Branch or something like that, but you see that Brian Branch can play safety. He could walk down into the nickel. He could play corner. He could do different things. And Marcus gives you that. He has that cornerback background, really quick and smooth feet. Like his back pedal is better than some corners backpedal. Well, guys, especially his awareness too, to be able to read guys running at full speed, knowing to get out of the backpedal quickly. He has really good closing bursts at the break point of routes. You just want to see him be better. Like he breaks on the ball. I want him to start making more plays on the ball because that's when your impact. Because we always talk about it. It's one thing to be a good coverage defender. It's another thing to take the ball away. And I think if he starts doing that, Keith, it's gonna help him as an NFL player a lot more. But that's a guy I think his stock is up. Like I said, 4th, 5th round. Guy that we don't hear a lot. He went to the College Gridiron Showcase. Shout out to Mike Riddleman and everything. He was on the show back in January and whatnot. So he was down there. So he didn't get a chance to go to the Senior Bowl. He wasn't invited to the Shrine. He didn't go to the Combine. So essentially, he wasn't known a lot. But this is a guy I think deep fans who need either a nickel or safety or both should definitely look into his game because he's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, and this is a guy that originally he was committed to us at LSU, and then he wound up going to Alabama, and then I think he got some snaps there, then ultimately transferred, I believe, to Mississippi State. But yeah, I do believe he's which I think the proper term is skill, right? Like he has skill for the position, fluid guy. I think his nickname was Speedy, so he can run. So it's yeah. So yeah, I like him as a nickel, DP. I think you're talking about maybe your 4th corner, right? When you get into those different packages, right? Your nickel guy that can play a little bit of safety, but probably like him more as nickel because I think he's only 175 pounds, something like that.
190.
Oh, he's bigger than that. Okay.
Yeah, he came in 190 as pro day.
Okay, I thought he was lighter. I thought he was lighter than that. Yeah, so maybe that's why. And to a comparison, right? And I threw this out when we talked earlier. It was kind of like a Cordell Flott. So for those people who watch Cordell Flott and New York Giants fans, are you familiar with his game? Somewhere in there, and Cordell was a lot lighter than what Speedy came in at. So that'll be interesting. But DP, get into a couple conversations, man. I don't have any stock up, guys. I have a couple question marks, right? Zach Frazier is a name that I'm seeing thrown out, or I can even say that I don't see it. I don't see it, and I potentially don't have the right eyes when I'm looking at that moment, right? And I watched him twice now, and I gave him a early day 3 grade coming out of the summer, and then heading into I just watched him again and I know there's a lot of talk about, hey, this guy might go in the 1st round or he might go top of the 2nd. I just don't see that, DP. I do see a starting center. When I watch Jackson Powers Johnson, when I've watched Tyler Lindenbaum, when I've watched Joe Tipman, I've seen some like next level traits, right? As far as the athleticism, the movement ability, the range, right? The ability to make contact on a 2nd level in a controlled manner, the finishing ability. I don't see some of those things at an elite level like I've seen from some of those guys. So I couldn't put Jackson Powers Johnson in the same conversation. I couldn't put Zach Frazier in the same conversation with a Tyler Lindenbaum and a Jackson Powers Johnson. I have him more of a starter in the NFL. I don't know if I have high level player like some other people do.
And Keith, that is a name when you're talking about the center class that gets a lot of love. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people who have him over Tanner Bortolini, people who have him over Bo Limmer, the people who have him over Cedric Van Pran.
Yeah.
And like, I haven't finished watching, but like the stuff I saw from him, I was like, okay, there's some good here, but then there's limitations like you talked about. And I literally was sitting there questioning just in like the limited watch I had. It's like, man, like I like Van Pran better as a athlete. I like Van Pran better, I think with his aggression. Limmer, I think I like him better just overall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's where, it's just going to be depending on how team scheme fits and how teams handle it and everything like that. Cause like, Pittsburgh Steelers, as we know, are still looking for their center. And I'm pretty sure one of these guys might find themselves in the Steel City by the time that the draft is over. So that makes sense, Keith. I'm with you on there. I got to finish the deep dive on him, but like that is a guy when I heard the 1st round talk, I was like, okay, this is a little bit much, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially
like he's got a good build, but I just didn't see why people would have him round 1. The people who did.
Yep, and especially because DP, we talk about centers, right? As they're And I don't know where the center class is, because now that Jason Kelsey has made it popular, right? People value centers again now, but it's one of those devalued positions, right, for a very long time. So even putting a center in the first round, most people are like, nah, man, you can find those guys in the 4th and 5th round. So even to discuss Zach Frazier in the first round, right? Like it just was an interesting conversation. I got into the film and I just felt I had question marks, right? If I felt that aggressively in my grade in regards to Zach Frazier. Like I said, think he's an NFL starter. I do. But you know, that's rare air when you start putting centers in the first round and having that conversation with DP. Let's keep this thing going, man. One of the segments that we came up with, right, for draft season, but it's quickly becoming one of my favorite segments, and that's Perfect Fit, man. When we picked the draft prospect, we picked the NFL franchise, and we said, you know what? This needs to happen. This needs to happen. So coming up next, man, stay tuned for our Perfect Fit.
Guys, I know it's hard to buy tickets, especially for MLB on opening day, NFL, whatever it is, but it doesn't have to be stressful, guys, because let me introduce you to Game Time. They are now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all right? All-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes out the guesswork of buying MLB or any kind of tickets for you. You can just go and have a great time. For example, guys, October 22nd, Charlotte, North Carolina, 8 p.m. If your significant other loves R&B music and Usher the way my wife does, guys, I'm telling you right now, all you need to do is go get them some tickets for this event. And with the Game Time app, you can get them as cheap as $123 right now. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Keep perfect fits, perfect prospect fits, or prospect perfect fits, where we tie that 2024 NFL Draft prospect to the team we think that they could have the most success with. And Keith, I'm going to go down to your neck of the woods. LSU, interior defensive lineman, Maason Smith. And I thought about a couple teams. Keith, I would love him to be drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. To pair him with Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, you got Felix Nduke-Uzoma, who's coming up, who's going to be a second-year player. Charles Omenihu, who's returning, coming back healthy. And with a defensive coordinator like Steve Spagnuolo, a.k.a. Spags, I think that's a great fit for Maason. Where Maason, for one, like physically, Keith, he's one of the better looking prospects in the interior defensive line class, Keith.
Yeah, I've seen him at Pro Day, and it was my first time obviously seeing him in a couple years. You know, got a chance to talk with him after Pro Day, you know, just see how he's doing, how's the family doing and everything. And, you know, just how this guy is put together. He's sick, he's every bit of 6'5", 300 pounds. He's not I have to say it like this, right? But he's not a fat guy, right?
Yeah.
And mean that in a good way, as far as his low body fat percentage, really good looking athlete. He is properly proportioned, right? He's not a top heavy guy, and just moved well, handled his business well, carries himself well. So I never thought of that DP, but I actually like that situation.
He's 6'5", 310, right? I think he had 35 at the combine. I think he had 35 even inch arms. So like the arm length is there, the strength. He's got good quickness. I just think that putting him, because, you know, he lost some playing time due to that injury, right? And I think this might be the most healthy he's been since his freshman year. So I think probably third round, you know, maybe depends on if he slips to the fourth. And you get like the Kansas City Chiefs where you could pair him, you know, with Chris Jones, and Chris Jones could give that wealth of knowledge that he has. As now with Aaron Donald gone, Chris Jones is at, I don't want to say by far. You still got Jeffrey Simmons and Grady Jarrett. You still got a lot of guys on interior D line, but Chris Jones is clearly the top interior defensive lineman in the NFL right now. That guy we've seen him like wreck Super Bowls. He can get back there. He plays and run well, and I think he can help bring along Maason to where all that untapped physical potential. You put a Maason Smith to learn from a Chris Jones, where now he's learning hand-to-hand combat. He's learning counters. He's learning how to Yes, you're big. Yes, you're strong. Yes, you have the arm length. But this is how you quickly win and clear that interior offensive lineman one-on-one. You don't always have to bull rush a guy and just try to be the more stronger guy. He teach him just the little nuances of pass rush and everything else, man. He could be the heir apparent to Chris Jones whenever that moment come where we look at Kobe Turner, and Rams fans are hoping, please be the heir apparent to AD. You know what I'm saying? If you're the Chiefs, like I said, Spags and his creative defensive alignments and everything else, and just him as a coach, I would absolutely love for Maason Smith to learn from those guys on that team.
Yeah, I think that'll be a great situation. And so to help, put in the context, Maason Smith's situation, I believe that was 3 defensive coordinators, I think, his entire time. So 3 different coordinators, I think 3 different defensive line coaches, 2 different schemes as far as odd front, even front, playing multiple positions, deep, like true edge rusher at 300 pounds, being kicked in as an interior defensive lineman, right? Line head up on the center, line up at 3 tech. So just a lot of things going on. And I think him being placed in a situation, DP, and that's why I like it, because I feel like you thought the entire situation through, right? He needs to be in a situation where the culture is good, not because of character, but the culture is good as far as football, because we're going to work on developing you, because there is so much potential and upside there just to get the most out of him. DP, I'm going to the Northwest, baby. I am going to University of Washington. Those Huskies. I'm going with Jalen McMillan. Can I say he's underrated also? I really feel like that. I feel like this is a very skilled player. And this is what I've seen. And I'm not going here, but I like, this is the best way I can put this into context. Jalen McMillan plays the slot a lot, right? And at the top of those routes, right, he has those two-way options, and he's so smooth at doing it. I remember watching Justin Jefferson do that same exact thing. And then I remember people thinking that Justin Jefferson was a 4.55 athlete. Mm-hmm. And then what flew under the radar is that Jalen McMillan ran a 4.47, which is plenty fast enough, which is actually good speed for a wide receiver. And so I'm looking at those teams, right? And it's so many conversations we can have, right? Do we want AD Mitchell or do we want Jalen McMillan, right? Like, if there's so many different conversations we can have, but with the conversation as far as team fit, I'm thinking of 2 teams. Thinking of the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Because that T. Higgins situation seems like it's going to be, it's going to separate, right? Unless they pay him, it's going separate ways. And so being able to put a guy, I think it's like highly skilled in a slot, I think it'll be something familiar for Joe Burrow, right? Big body guy that can run. And then the other team is this team needs to overhaul the entire wide receiver core. So that's the Arizona Cardinals, right? Mm-hmm. Even if you go get a Marvin Harrison Jr., we talked about double dipping and triple dipping at the wide receiver position. So I like him for both of those situations. And I threw out the Justin Jefferson a little bit, but I also seen some of Amon-Ra St. Brown also, that ability, but I think he's straight line faster than what Amon-Ra is. But I like both of those as far as like just his ability to get the job done. And we always talk about it on here, man. It's tempo and routes, man. It's selling different things to the defensive back. And when I'm watching him, and it's the head fakes, it's the arm movements, I'm like, this guy understands selling the details of it in the nuanced portions of playing a wide receiver and route running. And that's what I liked about him.
No, I like both of those fits. And, Keith, when you think about, and as a matter of fact, I actually put him in the second round of my mock to the Bengals. I was like, listen, whether it's T. Higgins or whether it's Tyler Boyd, you need to add another receiver. I know they got Charlie Jones, who was like kind of their punt returner, but he's a guy probably projected to play a lot more slot, maybe some movement Z, but probably more so inside with two-way releases, where I look at Jalen McMillan can play the Z full-time, in my opinion, and play the slot, right? So he gives you more bang for your buck and everything. And I think he's a better route runner versus man-to-man coverage. He's just underrated altogether. You know what I mean? I think also, like you said, if you put him in Arizona, you get Marv in the first round. If you can get Jalen in the third, when you have 3 third-round picks, like, so now you walk into your Kyler Murray, you walking into OTAs happy as all get out, right? You got
still have your guy, right? Is it Michael Wilson from Stanford?
Yep. You got Michael Wilson. Trey McBride turned into a legit dog at the tight end position, a true tight end one for all my fantasy players out there. That's a guy you probably drafted in the second round, after Travis Kelce and George Kittle. But you have Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride. They re-signed Greg Dortch. We know that, Hollywood Brown, who I believe he went to Kansas City, in free agency and everything. But at the same time, like you put Jalen McMillan there, like the way that they can run the ball, that play action pass is going to be really, really nice and a lot of fun for Kyler Murray to be able to survey the field. As long as that offensive line is better than it has been in the past years, man, you cooking right now if you Arizona.
Yeah, I agree, man. Just a player that understands, what to do and just knows what to do. So DP, that wraps up another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Listen, I said this is the source for the number one NFL draft content, but DP even threw in some fantasy content right there for y'all at the very end, man. We're doing a lot over here, man. But I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Said it at the top of the show. Now I'm gonna say it at the bottom of the show, man. Go ahead, hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel with the best NFL draft content out there. Listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Damian Parson, man. And you can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen. And shout out for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, guys, we're going to get into some more sleepers for the 2024 NFL Draft class. Guys, we're 2 weeks away. We're going to have stay with us because, guys, we're going to have like positional rankings, everything. We're getting into the nitty-gritty, the last final stretch, that home stretch, right? That 100-meter dash, we hitting it, guys. So listen, come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.